Hello, everyone. I'm coming to you from Glendale, Arizona, where the Glendale Desert Dogs are getting to play. Obviously, as Kyle's pointed out before, we record this on Tuesday night. However, this is the Wednesday, November 4th edition of Walton and Reis, brought to you here in video form at thecardinalnation.com and in audio form at the Scoops Sports Network and all your favorite podcast apps. Kyle, welcome.
Hello, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing great. I think I'm accustomed to the time zone now after not getting some sleep for a few nights. But hey, it's great to be here in Arizona and watching the Cardinals prospects play in the AFL.
Yeah, I'm jealous of you. I'm bundled up here, cold, and not watching baseball. But I do get to talk to you, and we get to talk it over about some fun baseball stuff. So I'm just know I'm jealous.
Well, I appreciate that, and life's tough, right? No, I've had the opportunity to come down here now for I can't remember somewhere between 15 and 20 years, and it's always different. It's always exciting every year because, of course, there's new players, and we'll talk more probably next week about what I'm seeing down here because I just recently got down here. But a couple of players that are standing out there, ones that we maybe didn't expect as much coming in. Darlin Saladin has been dynamite out of the bullpen. He had an opportunity to make a spot start, performed very well, and he's looking the strongest. Chen Wei Lin, who Kyle talked about earlier, had a couple of good starts, but he's also struggled in a couple. So he struggled in a couple of starts. So we'll have to watch and see what happens. On the outfield side, Travis Honeyman's been hurt a lot, but Miguel Ugueto has been very good in the outfield in his absence. Now Honeyman is back in the lineup, but Ugueto's performed very well, and he's extremely athletic, a very sharp looking player.
Yeah, the thing about Ugueto, we dug into that just a little bit, and really his struggle is against right-handed pitching. He's been very successful in the minor league career against left-handed pitching. And I don't know how if it's leveled off or not, but I know at the beginning of his time in the Arizona Fall League, he was hitting right. He started hitting righties a little bit. So I'm not sure if that's a mechanical cue or if it's just luck or whatever. But I really pull for Miguel Ugueto. Brian, when they announced he was going to the AFL, remember we did a little bit of digging, we looked into him a little bit, and I thought, man, maybe is more to this player than I thought. So here's the hoping he can continue this momentum and yeah, a really fascinating player. I Darlin Saladin really is the story. And our good friend Kareem Hawk, he kind of pinpointed it, but it really what he's done that's kind of propelled him to success in the Arizona Fall League, other than having like a tick up and consistent velocity, has been he's introduced a changeup that is actionable and he seems to have really good command of. So those are really the two stories, aside from Honeyman being hurt again, which really isn't a story so much as it is a way of life for poor Travis Honeyman.
Yeah, yeah. So the big announcement this week that Leonardo Bernal was named a minor league Gold Glove award winner. And of course, 21-year-old, we've talked more about his hitting than his defense. In fact, as I've talked to scouts about, trying to compare Leonardo Bernal and Jimmy Crooks, who's a level higher, and of course, made his debut with St. Louis this year. Folks have said that Bernal probably has more work to do on his defense than anything. But he was fourth in caught stealing percent in all of minor league baseball last year at 39.1%. Now, he also ranked second in stolen bases attempted against him. Now, some of that was the pitching, but some of it wasn't. But when they did run on him, he was very successful. And just to put into perspective, Bernal's Gold Glove Award, they've been giving these awards out for 15 years now. And this is a Gold Glove Award, by the way, for the entire minor leagues, not just for Double A. This is only the third time in 15 years that a Cardinal has gotten that award. One of them was Victor Scott a couple years ago, and the other was Carson Kelly in 2015. And those guys, of course, have gone on to be solid major leaguers. Kelly's been around for a long, long time as, of course, the starting catcher for the Cubs this year, playoff team.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really happy for him. I think I remember thinking about Victor Scott entering that year. He wins the Gold Glove, and everybody thinks that he's going to be Gold Glove caliber when he gets to the major leagues. And of course, he was nominated for a Gold Glove this season, but it took him a while to get that going. It took him a while to get his feet underneath him. He had some really bad struggles at the major league level in his rookie year, and I think if you use just the Cardinals model, what we've seen, like you said, Carson Kelly and Victor Scott the second, I think really what it tells you is that these players who win a minor league Gold Glove are creating a foundation for sustained and consistent major league success defensively. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a Gold Glove caliber defender when he gets to the major leagues, so hard to judge that with catchers too, by the way. And also, the Gold Glove is what the Gold Glove is. Sometimes it's a popularity contest. But what this does is it confirms two things. One is Baseball America put out a report where they asked a bunch of coaches about the players at each level, and Leonardo Bernal was declared the best defensive catcher at Double A by his coaches and his peers, and it's all really good signs of real high potential. So,
And
um,
not a surprise at all that Masyn Winn was named a Major League Gold Glove at shortstop, the utility position that both Burleson and Donovan were competing for seems a little bit odd anyway. So I don't necessarily feel bad about that, but it's nice to see Masyn Winn recognized.
yeah, good for him. Especially I guess you had your concerns when his season ended early that he might not be able to sustain. The clout that came with that award might lose some of his standing with that award. So I know it means a lot to him. I know that that's a really big moment for him, and I think that that is great that Masyn got himself a Gold Glove. Again, I have my own gripes about defensive everything basically and how we award and but it is awesome that this long-standing tradition of giving out Gold Gloves has allowed him to feel a sense of reward and accomplishment when he could be probably down in the dumps a little bit dealing with another knee injury. So good for Masyn. It's an awesome moment.
Last week about 40-man roster um, potential needs to protect for a Rule 5 draft. Um, what we've learned is so far is that Miles Michaelis isn't coming back. He wasn't made a qualifying offer, which is no surprise. 5 days after the end of the World Series, Thompson will have to be brought back on to the 40-man, which will fill it up again. So they're going to have to make some changes to clear up some space to do the protection of whether it's the three guys we thought most likely last week or whether it's somebody else. And of course, I'm talking about Bernal, who we just talked about, Joshua Baez and Cooper Jerpy. And then Blaze Jordan, Bryson Maud, several others are on the bubble as well. Any more thoughts about that as we've had another week?
No, Brian, it's just those same names that we kind of talked about. I would not suspect that the Zach Thompson era of Cardinal baseball will extend much further than what it is right now. Nick Raquette. I think about all those. I mean, I guess it's the three lefties: Thompson, Raquette, and the Latin gentleman whose name I do not remember right now because I am reeling.
Rincon?
Veneziano.
Pete Hansen?
No, no, no. That's not the guys that they're going to add. The guys that they're going to take off.
Oh, I'm
But
sorry. I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. You're fine. No big deal. But like there is a clear way to get it down where if they want to add mounts, which I absolutely believe they should add mounts. To me, he's not even a bubble guy. I think you have to add him. Without knowing the health of Hansel Rincon,
You were talking
I
about
would suspect
Veneziano, by the way, and
Veneziano.
Munoz, a
That's it. Yeah,
right-hander. Munoz, a
yeah.
right-hander too, probably is
Oh, yeah.
expendable.
Sorry. Well, yes. So, anyways, I do think that it's going to be easy enough to create room, however they want to create room. I don't hold the same. Here's the thing, Brian. If Michael Ciani is a player that they hold on to, no matter how much they love, and it costs them a Rule 5 pick, I'm going to lose my mind. It's just that, I mean, I'm going to lose my mind and fans are going to be tired of it. That's even if it's somebody who's ridiculous, even if it's Luke and Baker, or you know what I mean? Like, obviously not Luke, but like, obviously not Luke and Baker because he's not even in the organization anymore. But even if it's a player who doesn't ever end up becoming a major leaguer, I'm going to be tired of it. That to me, that signals more of the same, which is just poor roster management. So anybody that they want to add, they have plenty of options out there on the fringes of their 40 man that they can subtract out to add. I'm not worried about any of the back, man. I cannot care less about the back of the 40
I
man.
mean, Sim Roberts, been hurt a lot. I
Yeah,
mean, who's going to gamble on a guy who's been hurt and you don't know how he can pitch?
exactly, exactly, and who also has never really had the arm talent of somebody like Cooper Jerpy. They'll get the help. They'll know where all of these pitchers are in their return from their various 2025 injuries. And for me, I just don't care about Sam Robertson anyways. I mean, he has the potential, but where does he stack up against Hansel Rincon if Hansel Rincon is further along in his recovery from whatever ailed him in
Well, one's on
2025?
this trajectory and one's on this trajectory, right?
Yeah, at best, because I think you could argue that he was, granted arm, that he was already starting to show exposure. So,
Yeah. The Cardinals made a couple of very interesting personnel announcements, And they're very positive, in my opinion, but they've also been spun to suggest that these are examples of new investments the organization is making. And they may or may not be because there were people who were in similar jobs before who had left the organization previously. Now, that doesn't take anything away from this, but I'm waiting to see, new positions fill. And they're, I think the only reason that these two announcements were made probably was that the Athletic got wind of them. And so then the Cardinals did a quick text message basically to announce the changes because they were already out there. And the bigger press release of all the personnel is something that'll happen later this winter. But anyway, a gentleman named Joe Douglas was named director of pro acquisition, and he came from the Pirates organization. And Joe Douglas is going to oversee the professional scouts and the numbers people who work on professional acquisitions. And that's good because the Cardinals haven't really had one person leading professional scouting. Randy Flores has focused on amateur scouting, which is the draft. Now, the Cardinals had an executive, Matt Slater, senior executive, who focused on professional scouting, but he was more of a hands-on guy. He also kind of coordinated the scouts, professional scouts, but not really. Slater was more the leader of the Cardinals' efforts in Asia, and he was involved in signing Chen Wei Lin and Wan Bin Cho. But Slater left the organization over a year ago, and his job didn't get filled. Have you heard anything about Joe Douglas, anything about his reputation? I haven't. The other point I want to make before I let you talk, Kyle, is that Douglas is going to report to Randy Flores, the AGM. So Flores will now have responsibility for both amateur and professional scouting, which, as far as I'm concerned, makes complete sense.
Yeah, the only thing I know is that he rose through the Pirates ranks very quickly. Like he was brought in as just like a numbers analyst, basically. Another thing that kind of sticks out to me about Joe Douglas is he's from the Pennsylvania area. He's from the Pittsburgh area. I think he actually lived really close to the stadium. So it's kind of it seems interesting that he would leave his home, like what is relatively his home setup to go to a different organization. I would say that, but that organization that he's leaving is the Pirates, and that's a sinking ship. So, it makes sense. The other thing
Yeah,
that comes to my mind,
and by the way, this is a director level job. It's probably a promotion. I don't think he was a director with the Pirates, and the opportunity to get that executive level title is meaningful, and that's probably why the Cardinals were able to hire some of the guys they hired last year.
that's a great point, Brian. Yeah, the only other thing that comes to my mind that I know about him, because I've done very little research, is that Ben Cherington, he's close with Ben Cherington. And obviously, Cherington and Bloom have a history in other organizations. So I would imagine that this is a hire with knowledge of the person behind the title. So, yeah, look, it's a great move. I think it's going to bear out more. It's going to turn out to be more fruitful for the organization than it would have been under Matt Slater, because Slater was kind of very much on an island, and he kind of, he coordinated things, but he did his own thing kind of away from the business, we'll just say the business of Cardinal baseball.
Yep.
And this is going to be more hands-on. This is going to be more coordinating. It's going to be more communicative. And I would imagine that we'll see the fruits of his labors bear out in a more extensive way than we ever saw with Mr. Slater.
Yep. It'll be very interesting to watch. The other position that was named was a senior director of international scouting, and this is a gentleman named Jacob Buffa, who's a native of the St. Louis area, and he was with the Astros for about the last 6 years, and he will report to the international director Moises Rodriguez. Jacob Buffa is going to be responsible for international scouting, so it's good to see that the Cardinals are going to, increase their focus on scouting internationally. As we've discussed and many others have discussed, they've really had a more of a quantity rather than a high quality approach, generally speaking, and that hasn't brought as much fruit as one would hope and like to see. Other than Ivan Herrera, there's not much from the international program that we can say, has reached the majors in recent years. Now, the Cardinals had an international director before, prior to 2025, but his job, and here I'm talking about Luis Morales, who was the former director. He had responsibility for operations as well. And so while they maybe didn't net up an executive position, again, they're narrowing their focus to be international scouting for this director position. And I can see only positive coming from that as well.
Brian, I love it. obviously this young man has connections to St. Louis. He's from the St. Louis area. He went to Missouri State. He founded elite baseball in the St. Louis area. I think the thing that intrigues me the most about his background, and I'm probably doing a lot of dot connecting here, Brian. That probably isn't fair, but I will say
And
that
by the way, just to interrupt, in all fairness, we've never met either one of them. They haven't yet had any opportunity to meet with the media. So all we know is their reputation, and both are positive. But go ahead, Kyle. Sorry.
no, I think it's been fascinating. Part of the reason, and we know this for a fact, we know this part for a fact at least, is part of the reason the Cardinals have been so reluctant to give big money to foreign-born players in the foreign market, in the international market, is in part because of the history risk, the injury risk, and you just don't really know how things are going to translate. In Mr. Buffa's background, he has um, a specialty and like in I guess biomechanic, right? In how the body moves. I'm gonna the correct term is anatomy and human movement is where his specialty is, and I had to pull it up because I
Performance
couldn't think.
science, if you want to be a wonk.
That's it. The director of performance sciences on the elite baseball page. And I think that this is kind of shows that like if you have an owner who isn't necessarily big on spending money in that market on individuals, like you'll spend that, like you said, 8 million over 27 players, but you might, you'll spread that money out evenly. But instead of giving 6 million to one player in the Caribbean leagues, I think this signals that they're showing that all right, we're bringing people in who can explain why these players are worth the money, that they can comb through, do a little bit extra detective work, do biomechanical work to make sure that it's a little bit more foolproof than it was with some of just the scouting and the danger, the inherent risk that comes with spending that kind of money on players that are unproven.
And we're talking about players who are 14 to 15 years old when they're scouted, if not younger. And
Mm-hmm.
so, the risks are already huge anyway. So anything that can be done um, to better increase the odds that they're signing the right guys, how can that be anything but good?
Yeah, exactly. And you come from the Astros. He has a track record of success. Anybody who has an opinion, and the baseball world on the amateur level, even dating to the high school, like elite baseball performance, they work with high schoolers, and that world now is so tight. It's getting bigger and bigger, and travel baseball is bigger and bigger. It's a whole industry in and of itself. It's probably exploitive in some capacity, but it is a whole industry in and of itself, and that's become tighter and tighter, and that community is growing stronger and stronger, and it's growing stronger in the college ranks with connections between the high school ranks and college ranks with a perfect game, with all of the tournaments that are ran, and then that extends to the major leagues. So when the Cardinals sign Mr. Buffa, when they offer him a job, a role with the organization, and he becomes a part of the organization, you see it in every capacity. What they do at elite, what he has done, has reached beyond just the prep baseball or the college baseball. It extends throughout the entire industry from teenage to retirement age.
Very well put. Very well put. So these are the first new hirings of this go round. And as I predicted, sort of it was going to be the next level. The senior guys got hired last year, um, VP and AGM type, and now we're seeing more directors being added. There'll likely be a director of hitting coming, where last year it was a coordinator. So there might be a coordinator and a director. We'll just have to see. But the Cardinals are definitely going to staff up in that area as well. But those announcements haven't been made as of yet. Typically, the 1st of November is the time when new contracts get in place for both uniformed and other staff people for the next year. So it could be that the Cardinals have these lined up, or they're still working on, making their last major signing. So the timing of their announcements of their staff for next year is not clear, but it certainly has to be done by January when people start reporting to Jupiter.
Yeah, I'm sure that, like you said, there'll be one blanket, unless they keep trickling out this way, like you said, where the athletic Katie Wu or Derek Gould to get some information and it comes out. I would imagine we'll get one blanket with these are the 8 new coaches or the 8 new additions or 5 new or whatever number new additions to the organization, and we'll find out that some of these people have been in the role for like a month already.
Yep, yep. Which you want. You hope that folks are already in their planning for this coming year. Because again, we're 60 days away from players showing up in Jupiter, the first ones.
Crazy, Brian.
Yeah. And I'm less than 60 days from reporting to Jupiter as well. And I got a lot to do in the next 2 months.
You're in the best shape of your best shape of your life, Brian.
There you
Best shape of
go.
your
There you
life.
go. Best shape of my career. So the last thing I want to talk about briefly, we've been unveiling, yeah, unveiling
Yeah.
our top players of the year. We went through all the team awards for relievers, starters, and players. We had the rookies of the year, and these were the players who were signed this year. And then the players of the year. And not surprising, our reliever of the year was Luis Gastelum. And what is surprising, though, it's the second year in a row that he received our nod as the top reliever in the system. Andre Granillo gave him a run for his money. Granillo had a very good strikeout rate, very, very good ERA with Memphis. And of course, he made his major league debut. So neither one of those selections would have been wrong. But in my assessment of the stats, Gastelum was tops in every area but ERA. And he was obviously unlucky because you look at his FIP and his xFIP, and they're a couple of runs lower than where he finished. I'm guessing you didn't quibble with that selection.
Absolutely not, Brian. I like when confirmation bias ends up playing out to be just facts. And we felt pretty strong that Luis Gastelum was the best reliever in the organization that had not made a major league debut entering the 2025 season. And aside from just a couple little weird things here and there and a couple bad outings, he really was every bit of dominant.
Yep. Starting pitcher of the year, Ishan Henderson, Texas League Pitcher of the Year. You certainly can't argue, nobody can argue with that choice. But Cade Winquist of Peoria did a nice job. Braden Davis in his first year, was striking out guys like crazy, but also a little high on the walks. Curtis Taylor, the veteran, had a tremendous year for Memphis as well. So there are a lot of good candidates, but Ishan Henderson had the top ERA among starters, qualifying starters of the system, under 3. Did really everything the organization have asked of him, and he's obviously going to be in the AAA rotation this coming year.
Exciting, just an exciting player. Again, when you talk about a player who's taken huge steps to include to have more, did get to more velocity on all of his pitches, and get to a cutter and change some things up here and there, and see that bear out the way you want it to bear out. He's way more exciting than I think he's getting credit for, both on the national scene and maybe even from myself and some others. He's just a really solid prospect. Again, not necessarily flashy, but he's just really solid. And it's kind of like the pieces that the Cardinals organization have been missing over the last couple of years, that type of like solid potential from a starter.
And player of the year, again, couldn't go wrong. JJ Weatherholt had a tremendous year, Texas League Player of the Year. Kept on hitting when he went to Memphis. Brian Torres almost won the batting title in AAA. Daniel Ortiz, of course, had a tremendous breakout year between Palm Beach and Peoria. But Rainiel Rodriguez led the entire system in both slugging and OPS. And at the age of 18, blew through 2 levels, had 2 promotions during the year, and he was my choice as Player of the Year for the system. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals picked Weatherholt, but I wouldn't quibble about either one.
Yeah, Brian, I'm with you. To me, it comes down to 4 players, and it's Weatherholt, Rainiel, Danielle Ortiz, and Joshua Baez. And again, I'm not what JJ Weatherholt did the year after he was drafted to make it to AAA to continue to have success. But I think you could almost argue that he could finish 4th on that group, and I think it's just to say that those 4 in particular have had a really great year. Of course, he's gonna help the Cardinals will award him that, and he's deserving of it. But I just think that little 4-pack of prospects in particular and what they did at the plate, defensive side, deserves all of the acclaim that it is getting, and in some cases not getting. And that's part of why I champion Daniel Ortiz, because I think that he's kind of like the forgotten hitting prospect, and he's barely even started going.
Yep. And the only thing I can say is he had a 400 BABIP, but that's something we're going to watch this next year and see if that can be sustained. Hopefully it won't be, but he'll continue to hit as well as he did.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed, Brian.
There you go. The last major award we had was Manager of the Year, and really it was Team of the Year. And I think it was pretty obvious that Springfield, set a team record in wins for the year. They actually picked up a few more wins in the second half than the first half, and they finished in first place in both halves and went on to win the league, have the MVP, have that pitcher of the year, a bunch of all-stars as well. So it was really, really good year at Springfield. And first year manager at that level, Patrick Anderson, who came up from Peoria, we named the manager of the year, but we also want to make sure that we recognize the coaches, hitting coach Casey Chenoweth, um, pitching coach Eric Peterson, who had the best staff in the league, bench coach Danny Black, and then strength and conditioning coach Ryan Duffy, trainer Alex Wolfinger. All of them did a great job. And, because they were all there, you had those players of the year, and Baez and Motts were all-stars, and all the great things happened in Springfield this year. It was a tremendous year at AA.
Yeah, and we know that Chenoweth in particular is starting to get a lot of publicity, and I guess we could say that Jordan Walker went down to Double A and got himself right for a couple of weeks, and part of that was Mr. Chenoweth. So again, just not to only single him out. I'm only going to single him out though, but to just to credit your point.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have to watch. St. Louis is going to add a couple of assistant coaches potentially with Packy Elkins and Dean Kika moving into non-uniform jobs. So, it's not crazy to think that some of these young stars in the minor league system might get a chance in the big league staff.
I hope so. That's exciting to me.
I want to leave you with one thing, Kyle, and that was last Saturday, of course, was the Game 7 of the World Series. Very exciting, extra innings, etc. But probably the story, at least if you're a prospect person, the story of the World Series and of the late season in Major League Baseball was Trey Yesavage of Toronto, and the tremendously fast ascension he made from being drafted to becoming effective major league starter. And I will tell you, I don't know if you have, but I've gotten a lot of questions already saying, are the Cardinals going to be the next to do this, with Doyle? And it doesn't feel like a Cardinal thing to do, but yet, you look at what happened there and you say, man, maybe he's a special guy, maybe he's a different guy. But, I've talked to several catchers who have caught Doyle and have said that they didn't expect all four of his pitches to be as advanced as they were for someone who just came off a college campus.
Well, that's fascinating, Brian. That's a huge bit of information to pass along to the listener. I would say that there's no way that that happens, but I'll also say that if all of a sudden you get into September and the Cardinals are 20 games above 500 or 15 games above 500 in 2026, knocking on a playoff door, I think anything could happen, and they'd be dumb not to do it. Mr. Bloom has been very forward about saying that they're going to take all the time that they need to develop every prospect that they can. There's no one's going to be rushed. No one's going to be on a fast track. I would say that we do know that there is a bit of a fast track. We've seen this pattern now with JJ Weatherholt when they'll put a player, and I guess taking a step back, this comes from Rob Serfolio, but they will put a player at the level where they feel like the player will get the most out of the challenge, which is why Weatherholt started at Double A. They thought he wouldn't get much out of a challenge at High A. There would be nothing to really take from him, so he starts the 2025 season at Double A, and you could almost envision a situation where it would be something similar to Doyle. But Brian, what did we talk about when we were talking about expanding to 28 players in September? If the Cardinals would have been on a run, more than likely we would have seen JJ Weatherholt. More than likely, but so it's all about circumstance. But it does seem like there's just no way that this front office, as currently constructed, is going to be interested in rushing prospect development.
Now, Liam Doyle was brought up to Springfield for the end of the year. Spent the playoffs with the Double A club. Wouldn't be crazy for him to start at Double A next year. If he did, it would be the first prospect in my history to not pitch at any A levels anytime. Michael Waka moved very quickly once he started, but it would be very interesting. So we'll have to watch him in spring. I'll have to watch him. We'll have to watch him in spring training. I don't think he'll be in big league camp. At least I'd be highly surprised if he was. But certainly, just as there was a lot of anticipation for Weatherholt, and there still is, there will be for Doyle as well.
It's exciting. It is exciting. And, it doesn't matter what we think, but I just want to tip my cap again to Trey Yesavage. I really like Trey Yesavage in the draft, and to see him develop as well as he's developed and really get to what he's been able to get to. Really impressive. Absolutely impressive.
Well, Kyle, I hear the national anthem having been played, so I need to get to covering a baseball game. So with that, we will probably close this edition of Wednesday with Walton and Reis for November 5th. Make sure you swing by the and catch up on all of our articles. We still got some um, final wrap-up articles of the year. As I mentioned before, Kyle and I are working on the 2026 top 50, but there are still three spiral-bound books left from the 2025 guide that aren't sold yet. So they're 20% off. So swing by and place your order now, or once they're gone, they're gone. Kyle, thank you again for another informative Wednesday with Walton and Reis.
Brian, as always, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, see everybody on the 12th.